Smarter Markets is back in Lausanne, Switzerland for the 15th edition of the FT Commodities Global Summit. I am happy to be joined by Ruth Crowell, CEO of the LBMA. Thanks for joining us, Ruth.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be in Lausanne, but also to be here with Smarter Markets.
I appreciate that because it's a beautiful spring day here in Lausanne. So glad you came indoors with us, but you're indoors most of the day with the conference. You're speaking on a panel this afternoon on gold. And I was curious, what do you want to tell people about the gold market right now?
Well, I'm delighted that gold has been included in this event. It feels to me as an oversight. I would say that. But I also would say that a lot of people have been coming up to me as gold having a moment. I actually think it's a new chapter. And the reason I say that is that I think within the industry, we knew the value of gold as part of a diverse portfolio, as a reserve asset. But I think the world is waking up to that should be a more mainstream part of a portfolio. It's nothing on the fringe, and it can actually bring a lot of safe haven during these uncertain times that we live in. So I think they're a little bit slow, but I'm delighted to see gold's included, and hopefully it'll be a feature for the future.
And there have been quite a few wake-up calls for gold over the past year. A lot of the conversation at the conference right now is, of course, on the conflict in Iran and the impact that's having on many commodities markets. What impact do you see that having on gold right now?
Well, I think it makes it more in demand. I think when we saw the disruption that happened with the outbreak of the war, you saw gold playing its role exactly as it should. It's a point of liquidity. It's a winner that you can sell to cover the losers. And so you saw it perform very similarly to U.S. Treasuries on that point, and a rebound in the price that came after that. So I think, yes, it's going to continue to be of interest as we have so much uncertainty. Certainly that's been the conversation I've heard today. And I think for the world that might be very optimistic, if we look a little bit more cynical, when the Strait opens, it's not as if we just go back to early February straight away. There's a lot to unwind there.
So it's a new chapter in many areas.
Yes.
And when you look at another theme of the conference has been the shifting of supply chains,
Yes.
in a way that's very new. Do you see that happening in gold as well?
I think to some part, but it's still a smaller aspect. I think the focus on the region has really meant that there's been disrupt to airlines and also metal flows, whether into the region or passing through as a hub. I think it's something the industry has dealt with in recent years. I think COVID was quite a challenge when it came to moving gold around the world. It normally goes by passenger aircraft. So COVID was much more challenging from a supply chain. So I think there's been some rerouting, but I don't think it's anything the industry can't overcome. I think what is important when it comes to supply chain is the traceability side of things.
And you've been doing a lot of work on the traceability side and a lot of work at the LBMA over the last few years of getting the gold market ready for its next chapter. What do you think the gold market needs to be ready to be more mainstream in people's portfolios?
I think, the main work we've done over the last 10 years is bringing that transparency. And that's not just on supply chain. It's also in terms of data. We went from one of the most opaque markets to one of the most transparent. And what that's brought is that as the world looks to gold, it's having a moment. It's actually saying, well, here's some data we can get into and say, look at the case, look at how it's performed in these various crises that we've had over the last 6 years. And decide for yourself whether you're a prudential regulator looking to recognize gold as a high-quality liquid asset, or if you're more like the folks who are here today, you're a big commodities trading house who has looked at the base side of things, but precious has perhaps been in the too difficult box. Start to say, well, we should absolutely be part of this market.
And what sort of response have you gotten so far from the market?
Overwhelming response. I think anyone who's been within the industry a long time, it's been exhausting in terms of the amount of interest. It's a high-class problem. Right. But, I think for a lot of folks, it's how do we prepare for that? Because it isn't just a moment in time. It has been a gear shift in terms of the interest is continuing. It's only continuing to grow, and we need to get ready for that.
And on the supply chain tracing and the understanding the provenance, what are the most important aspects that people want to know about the provenance of the gold that they're buying?
I think ultimately it comes down to what we refer to as chain of integrity. You want to know who you're doing business with and where that material is coming from. And that was always done on a more, I don't know, a paperwork and in person, understanding the individuals, but actually having technology arms around that allows you to scale up and to operate with confidence. I think it's wonderful that you have so many new entrants, but they do need to make sure they equip themselves with the standards and the processes so they don't inadvertently, fall in with illicit actors or get taken advantage of in parts of the world. Because it is a global market, and one with the price moving as it is, you need to be careful.
And what are some of the most interesting initiatives you're working on now at the LBMA?
Well, I think the traceability piece is important. It's really going from confidence in gold that is unknown in terms of provenance to known, and something that here in Switzerland, I would say the market is very passionate about and is a bit ahead of other parts of the world, of really wanting to know which mine has this come from? How can I look through that kind of life story of the material and have confidence, not just in the material, but also the entities that you are dealing with?
And before I let you go, I wanted to ask, as a conference participant, anything interesting that you've heard in the conference so far? Anything surprising that you're going to take away?
Well, I really found the opening comments about they asked the panel what they've been surprised about, and that the optimism was very interesting to me. And actually, I think that's right. I think as humans, we tend to be very optimistic that the world is going to get better. And it's really recognizing that we have seen energy shocks before, but this isn't something that we suddenly go back to where we were in January, because there's been talk. Yes, it can improve, but there's all sorts of points about supply that has to be unwound. So it's certainly given me food for thought. I think I remain optimistic, but I think that is the point of having gold in your portfolio, is that it's anti-cyclical. When times are bad, gold is performing very well. And so it's an important thing to have in these uncertain times.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ruth.
It's a pleasure.
Great to meet you.